this is an overview of a handheld system that I basically received by accident. I've always been into retro machines, handhelds, consoles, etc., so forth, and that'll probably be a whole video by itself going over each one of those and how I was able to jailbreak them, etc., so forth. But I was able to obtain this Anbernic RG505 pretty much by accident, and I wasn't planning on receiving this one, and then that led me to this one, which is $20. I think it's a let's take a look at this, R36S, not even a brand name, that I bought off of AliExpress for $26 and another $10 shipping. And this one can be a whole video by itself. Not as powerful as this one. This is Linux based. This is Android based. But let me give you a little background. I basically bought this on the Goodwill online bidding site by accident. I saw it. I knew the brand name Anbernic from China. I knew something of them. Never really needed it per se, but was interested. I saw that their power was getting higher and higher. I saw that their memory was getting higher. The amount of RetroArch emulators that it was able to run effectively was basically getting better and better and better. As you can see, this one I'm running a Wii software. It obviously runs GameCube very, very well. It actually runs some PS2 games very, very well. But I bid on it, and I think I bid $50 for it on the website and won it. And this is basically $120 last time I looked on AliExpress. I'm like, oh, I have the website here. What are they actually saying? $118.49 shipping from China. Yeah, and this is the same exact model. And I won it for $50 plus $10 shipping, and started playing around with it. I basically just cleaned it up. I put a screen, because this is a touch screen, put a screen protector on it, and then I replaced the stock operating system, which I would totally suggest doing, because stock operating system is not very good at all. And I put what they call Gamma OS on it, and again, we'll get into that a little bit later. And just started loading up some ROMs and some games on here just to test it out. And honestly, I'm really impressed. You can even put the version of the Gamma OS that has the full Google Play Store on it. So then you get everything on the Play Store. You could hold it like this. It's got a sensor that'll detect what orientation that it's on. So it basically is a small tablet or a large phone with controls on it. Right? You have a SD card on it, so it's expandable. I have a 512 gig SanDisk on it, which I would totally suggest don't cheap out on the SD cards, because I've had too many that just failed, and it's not worth it, especially something that you're going to put data on, like a GoPro or your game system, and then you have nothing when it fails. As you can see, I'm just comparing it here to the other systems. So you got the original PSP. We have the new Game & Watch here, which went to sleep. We'll turn it back on here. Then I have the 3DS, which I jailbroke, and I put a ton of games on there. Put another 512 gig SD card on it. And this was, between these two, these were my two go-to systems for handhelds. I do have a Switch, but I mostly use that docked. So that's basically the introduction. It's a system that I received in summary, and it was by accident that I started playing with it, and it has since, I've just been totally enamored by it. It was basically a system or an issue that I was not looking for, but then became something that I am totally fascinated with it. I use it to play games, mostly DS games. This thing runs DS games perfect. So it runs some 3DS games, but it's really, pushing the envelope. And then some Wii games, most Wii games work well on it. I mean, you have to play with how the controls are set up, because with the Wiimote, especially the Wiimote that is held like a NES controller. But when you start playing games like, I'm trying to think of one that where you have to point out the screen, like Mario Galaxy, where you have to hit the screen with the IR pointer and then pick up the dots and etc. so forth, all the little gems. You could do it on here by touching the screen. It's not perfect, but it's playable. It's definitely playable, and you can definitely run it. One of the things that you have to do is tweak the emulator to get it running as smooth as it is, because this emulator, it's just not. I believe this is Dolphin MMR is the emulator. If you're not familiar, there's two different versions, actually multiple versions and forks of Dolphin. But this one running with the Vulkan renderer, software renderer, it runs really, really well. A couple games do glitch out, they do crash on you. I think that has to do with the Vulkan renderer, but if you use the OpenGL renderer, everything runs at like half speed or 2/3 speed, so it's not even worth it. Don't even bother. Anything below GameCube runs GameCube perfectly, absolutely perfectly, and anything of that generation. PS2, like I said, PS2, you're really pushing it. Wii, you're really pushing it. There are games that run well on it, but there's definitely games that do not run well at all. It's hit or miss. Then anything under that, it just runs fantastic. All the way down to I have Atari 2600 and Magnavox Odyssey, 2 games on here, and obviously they run fantastic too, and everything in between. So let's do a quick overview of exactly what this is. You gave you the background, how it can basically fell in my lap, how I started working on it, and I'm just enamored by it. It really works really, really well. It's an Android system. On the side, you have your basically volume controls here. On the top, you have your audio jack, as well as USB-C. This is only for charging. That's the one thing I don't like, is I wish it had a audio or video out, or an HDMI, mini HDMI out, or even through the USB-C. That would be perfect. You have your triggers, trigger 1, trigger 2, right and left. On this side, you have your, basically this is like a hotkey button and then a back button for Android. This is assigned right now to the Gamma OS. I believe it's called Daihatsu, which is the front end. I personally like Emulation Station as the front end, but Daihatsu, it runs good. There's some things I don't like about it. We can go into that when I start going through the software. And this is a back button, basically. And on the bottom, you have your power button, speakers, which are surprisingly good, these speakers. And then your power button, which you can quick hit and it just puts it to sleep. You can long press and it makes it go, totally powers it off, and your SD card. Now on the back, you basically have, it's a pretty good feel. These rubber areas are in a weird spot. I guess just my hands are larger. I wind up gripping it out to here, but you do feel it. It does give you a bit of grip. Otherwise, it'd just be a big slab of slippery plastic, especially if your hands start sweating a little bit. And then this definitely helps when putting it on the table. That makes a big difference. Gives it a little bit more quality. I like it. Now on the top, you got the select and start button. You have a D-pad, pretty good D-pad. Not the best D-pad I've ever used, but very, very acceptable. These are Nintendo Switch-like joysticks, when they have the R3 and L3 clicking on it. I don't know if these are hap effect. I'll have to check on that when I go look at the website. And then you have your standard A, B, X, Y buttons over here on the side. So pretty straightforward. Let me go back, exit the emulator. Takes a second. And again, I put these out here just for reference. Banana for scale. Well, game systems for scale. This is basically the operating system, the Diatso. I'm saying it wrong. You guys can correct me. It's Japanese. It works okay. I mean, it's acceptable. I'm real big on the front end. I actually have an emulation station on here. Maybe if I get a second, I'll run it. The first time you have to start it up, it takes a second to cache everything and I guess to index everything. But once it's up and running, it runs fine. But this is embedded into Gamma OS. That's a whole process. That's a whole video on how to put Gamma OS on there. There's dozens of videos up on the internet that'll tell you how to basically put Gamma OS on here. But it's a good front end. It's not as feature packed as Emulation Station, but it works. These bumpers bring you across the tops here. These are all of your Android apps. Here's all your settings for the front end, as well as the system, which is Android again, and then the library is pretty much where you're pulling all your system and ROMs and games on here. That's a whole nother video how to get them on here. This is just an overview video. Hopefully we'll have a deeper dive video after this if we get enough videos. So as you can see, this is the front end, and if you could do I believe it's these bumpers, yeah, that takes you in the front. Oh, I'm sorry, the upper triggers. And you can see all the systems that I've loaded up on here. Let me see if I can get it a little bit closer. TurboGrafx CD, Vectrex, Virtual Boy, Wii, Color Swan, Wonder Swan Color, sorry, 3DS games. Most of the ones that I have in here, they run great. Right now, what I'm playing is The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. I have all these cartridges, so I consider these fair use. But these all work really well. Fire Emblem works. Luigi's Mansion works really good. I like the golf games. I don't know. Maybe it's just I'm getting older and showing my age, but the Phoenix Wright games, all these work. I started doing the Legend of Zelda, for example. There are spots where it starts to stutter, for example, as well as the 3D areas. I guess where it's starting to render and cache the textures. I'm not sure, but it catches up to itself, and then we hear it. We mostly hear it also on the sound when it starts to give you a jitter. And it starts to stutter. Other than that, it actually works really well. Mario Kart 7 actually works pretty well too. There are some slowdowns on some tracks. That's when you notice. That's when it's imperfect. But this is as high as you're going to get. You're really pushing this operating system and this emulator, which is what emulator is this? This is Dolphin. Dolphin MMR that I put on here. So let me go back out. Oops, sorry. This button, 2600, 5200, 7800, ColecoVision, Dreamcast. It actually runs Dreamcast games very well, surprisingly well. Maybe it's just the way the Dreamcast is coded and the state of the emulator, but boy, it just runs it very well. Crazy Taxi runs really well. I'm trying to remember the game. I think it's Baguio. There are points where it starts to stutter, but in general, it runs Dreamcast really well. Let me go back out. Dreamcast. Whoops, keep hitting the wrong gun. Game Gear, Game Boy, of course, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color. They all run fantastic. GameCube games. There you go. GameCube games. They run fantastic. Now, as you can see, some games you'll see in here, they don't have the metadata, or they don't have the cover, for example. The one thing I absolutely despise about this front end, the Diatso, I'm going to say this right, front end, is the scraper. The scraper is just not very good at all. I mean, that's the one thing that Emulation Station has on it. The Emulation Station with the screensaver.fr, I mean, and I have an account there, and I give them Patreon money because it is just, and you don't have to, but I give them money because it's just worth it. I don't mind donating for what they provide. And apparently they have issues dealing with the screensaver.fr because they are a European Union company, and dealing with the translations and the APIs, etc. I don't know what it is, but I'm telling you, this scraper is just not good at all. It really is not. So a lot of things like this, like Super Smash Bros., I had to go in here and do backflips to try to get it to find Super Smash Brothers, a common game like that, and then it couldn't even find that game, you know. And then some games it could find the game, but it couldn't get the cover, for example. But it got me the metadata. So I don't know what the deal was. That it's just not good. I mean, it's acceptable. I think maybe I'm really nitpicking here because everything else runs good. It's just that when you have a large collection and you want it to scrape down and you want to see all of the covers for your collection, this is something that really bothers you. And you see something like that for WarioWare, and it doesn't show up. I don't know. It bothers me. So Genesis, everything runs perfectly. Game & Watch games, it runs really, really well. I like the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons one from when I was a kid. Television, there you go, when I was a kid. Jaguar. Links. But believe it or not, Jaguar, that is a system that it has a hard time running. Runs Dreamcast fine. Jaguar, there's some games that run great, some games it does not. Like Tempest, I like Tempest, for example. For the MAME arcade version of Tempest, you run Tempest 2000 on here, it's just there's parts of it where you could definitely feel where the emulator probably is just not optimized. Lynx runs fine. There you go. We got a bunch of my favorite MAME arcade games on here. Sega Master System, Nintendo 64, Nintendo DS, Neo Geo CD. By the way, you'll see your favorites in here that you can mark. You can mark games in here so if you have a lot of them, you can mark a bunch of favorites that you know you're going to go to. For Gradius, for example, Castlevania Blaster Master, for example. And then Neo Geo Pocket Color, Magnavox Odyssey 2, like I said, PS2, PSP. By the way, that's another good aside. PSP runs great. This screen is a OLED screen, and it's a perfect ratio, and it's a 1-to-1 for a PSP screen. So PSP games run perfect. Dare I say, it even look better on this system than it does on the original OLED screen. PSP minis that I have in here. PlayStation runs fantastic. I love PlayStation 1 games. Sega Saturn, hit and miss. I think that might be the optimization of the emulator, kind of like the Jaguar. There are games that run good, and there are some games that don't. 32X perfect. Sega CD perfect. SG-1000 perfect. Super Nintendo perfect. Super Graphics perfect. TurboGrafx CD, TurboGrafx 16, Vectrex. Vectrex is tough because the overlays, I haven't got the overlays to work. And of course, if you're familiar with the Vectrex, you have to have that acetate or plastic overlay that goes over the top of it. So, that's a quick overview of the system. I love it. I think it's great. I would like to do a deeper dive of this. Well, maybe I can bring up one game and show you how it runs. I'll give you let's go for 2. Game Boy Advance. Let's go to a favorite, and so Astro Boy. That's a good one. So you could either double click here, or you can hit the A button. This is a RetroArch system. Oop, let me go back to it. There it goes. Don't know why I didn't start the first one. Never had that happen on Game Boy Advance, but you get the SUD here the first time. Astro Boy works great. Astro Boy, it's a good platformer, and you can see it looks wonderful. You could load up all the RetroArch overlays if you want to make it look more like the actual screen from the Game Boy Advance. Again, I think it looks fantastic the way it is. right. Let's see if I can get it to go up and show you the different screens. That OLED screen looks wonderful. So, as you can see, they work out really well. Now, for some of the systems that have non-RetroArch emulators, you have to go in there and configure them, and I'll give you an example of that. Would be the Wii and the GameCube, because that's the external Dolphin emulator, which works with the system, with the Daihatsu system and the Gamma OS. It's just that you have to set them up outside of RetroArch. Whereas in here, anything that's RetroArch just runs fine, basically. And you can even load up other RetroArch cores. Again, I could go into, if you're not familiar with that, that's a whole nother video. There's a ton of videos out there. But as you can tell, it runs great. All right, and then to exit out of here, hit the side, here's RetroArch, close content, bang, and you're out. Go out twice, because I was in the favorites. And then let's see if I can load up Emulation Station. I might have to jump up here. So that's the bad part about Emulation Station. It does take a long time to start up the first time. However, once it's started, it works well. As you can see, all the systems are in here. Let's go into the system. Oh, TurboGrafx. And there you go. And you can change it. So everything works real well. That's it. This is Emulation Station. If you want to get out of Emulation Station, there you go. It goes right back to the Gamma OS. Daihatsu. It's actually right here. I gotta get that right. And that was Japanese. Anyway, that's the overview. It's a RG505, by the way. The screen is 5-inch diagonal OLED. Comes in either gray, turquoise, or yellow shell. The CPU is a Tiger Unisoc T618. It's basically running at 2 gigahertz, 8 core, 64-bit, 4 gigs of RAM, and it's got 128 gig internal eMMC. So internal, in addition to the SD card that you can expand on it. It's got built-in Wi-Fi, both 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. It's also got Bluetooth 5.0. It's got Android 12 internally already in the system, but of course I put Gamma OS on it, which is also Android 12, at least at the running of this video. And the battery, it's a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. So it says 2.5 hours to charge, and it lasts 8 hours. I haven't even pushed that. I've been playing this thing for at least 4 or 5 hours, and I'm still seeing it at 50%. So maybe I'm just not pushing it, CPU, pushing the screen high enough. But for example, to see that it is Android, if you swipe down here, there you go. Here's all of your standard Android options that you could pick. For example, do not disturb. This is all basic Android, and then you get your Android buttons here. You know, there you go. Throw the launcher back. So your standard home, back, and system buttons. So you can basically swipe out. There you go. There's all the systems that was running. So I was running Emulation Station. I don't like it. Just like any other Android system, and then go out. So anyway, I hope you liked it. This is only supposed to be an overview video. If you want a deeper dive, please comment. This is the beginning of my YouTube career. Hopefully I'll have more interesting stuff. I have a huge collection of interesting items, automotive, reloading and firearms, game systems, for example, audio systems, you know, retro vinyl, as well as just computers, etc. and so forth. So hopefully I could do a lot more of this. This is more of a hobby more than it is anything. It's just something I just want to share for everybody. So thank you very much. I appreciate it, and have a great day.